What's up, NIO family? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with NIO, Tesla, SPY, and a couple of other tickers. I'm going to break down what's happening with the market moving forward and some big news involving the FOMC minutes, not to mention the way the charts are looking. But just notes that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please smash the like button. It not only benefits me, it benefits the entire community as a whole. Looking at NIO, we saw this big dump yesterday, only to get bought back up today after the FOMC minutes came out. NIO gapped up and saw this big dip, only to get bought back up. And then we got a nice reaction after the FOMC minutes. So, what happened with the minutes? Basically, they came out today. And as a result, this was more positive for the markets. The market saw that the Fed is going to most likely cut rates in September. And the market saw a little pop, then it dipped a little bit before continuing to push. And we got a decent close, at least thus far. On top of this, right now the market thinks there's a 64% chance we get a 25 basis point cut, and a 36% chance that we get a 50 basis point cut, and a 100% chance we get a cut altogether. So the market is once again favoring that cut that's coming, the Fed's pivot, and that's why the market is continuing to push. Now, I want to mention to everyone that's tomorrow. It's going to be Thursday, August 22nd, 2024. Please remember that 15 minutes after the market opens, we have the S&P Global Composite PMI, Manufacturing Services PMI data reports coming out, and more manufacturing numbers at 11 o'clock a.m. So look for some volatility with all of this going on. And we'll see what this leads to for the market. So get ready for that. That's going to be very, very important. On top of this, when it comes to the fear and greed index, right now we're neutral. We're getting closer to greed as the days go on. Momentum is still extremely greedy as buyers are stepping in. Not to mention the fact that the puts and call option positioning is dipping as greed is making up the majority of sentiment. The VIX is also dipping right now as we're below our 50 daily moving average. So right now the buyers still have somewhat of an edge. Now, there's been some talk about NIO, how it's been aiming to build better battery chargers, swap stations in every Chinese county, and a lot more potential, in my personal opinion. So, China has about 2,800 counties, and they're trying to build one of these swap stations in pretty much every one. And they're continuing to see a lot of investments being made around here, as they've invested about $210 million into the unit. So, that's some very, very big news. NIO is continuing to double down on battery charging. And I think that this is very, very amazing because of the growth that we are seeing and the amount of people out there who are interested in this. So I think that this will help them get a lot more sales if these become normal, especially across the country. And it's very, very good news for them as these charging stations will allow their users to have more convenience, and they could also install more of them in Europe. So I think it's very, very good news for them, and I can't wait to see what else the future holds. There's also some news coming out about how NIO has been committed to making continuous investments into charging and swapping infrastructure. They had its plans announced at a very, very important conference. Great news for them, in my opinion. We have 26 million in volume. That's a little bit above average, or a little bit below average, excuse me. And then the short volume is still dipping. And finally, we have the same data as before. Just note that Thursdays are known for being green only about 50% of the time. There's not really much else that's going on. For earnings, just know that Target had decent earnings. They beat on EPS and revenue. They actually ended up pushing. And then we had Macy's, which didn't have the best of earnings. They missed on revenue, and then they had weak guidance, which is why the share price is down. That's not really that crazy. So I'm just going to focus on the charts from this point on. So for NIO, because we got a nice positive reaction after the data came out today from FOMC minutes, we are looking at the Fed potentially giving us a cut. It looks a lot more convincing, a lot more probable for September. It's also going to benefit what's going on with the election and such. So I just want to say that is helping the market rebound. NIO was looking bearish yesterday, but then this data caused a bounce. I did say yesterday to watch and see what the data causes. Because we're rebounding, we'll be watching to see if we could hold above 3.95. If we lose 3.95, we'll be dipping back down towards the 3.8 area. And if you hold above 3.95, we could be pushing to some balance towards this 4.07 area as well. My gut tells me this might dip a bit, and as long as we hold above support, we could be pushing for 4.07 for a little bit of a push. I think that we might be looking for a decent move, so there might be a little upside coming. I also think the market has more upside coming, but we're going to be hitting some tough resistance, so we'll have to see what kind of reaction we get. SPY looks bullish. I think that we might be looking for a test of 562 again tomorrow. If we break that, we could fill this gap and continue to push all the way up towards the 564 area. And that's going to take us to all-time highs. Now, if we do hit all-time highs, this could be forming a nice looking cup. And we have a large bearish divergence that's forming. So generally, this does lead the markets eventually getting a rejection. So my gut is telling me we might go a little bit higher, close to all-time highs. And then we'll see if we get a big rejection or not. If we get a rejection and we lose 556, look for a bigger dip on SPY. If we break past 564, we could be pushing to higher levels. 565 is going to be the next level to watch if we break that. Then we're going to be heading all the way up towards 570. So honestly, guys, it could go either way, but just know that there is a greater probability, a somewhat greater probability that we do get that rejection because we're going to be hitting some tough resistance. And I'm going to be open-minded nonetheless. Anything could happen. So look for a potential test of 564 soon if we break past 562. And then we'll see if we get that big rejection or not. That could depend on a lot of different factors. Now, for Nvda, this may try to push a little bit higher towards this 130 area. We'll see if this rejects or not off of it. As of right now, we made a nice little bounce attempt, and Nvidia is looking a little bit more bullish. So we could be looking for a test of 130 again tomorrow for a little bit of a push. We're forming a bearish divergence, which might lead to a rejection later on. But for now, we are looking like we want to push higher. For Bitcoin, we're going to be looking at resistance at 62,000. If that breaks, we're going all the way up towards 62,700. And if we lose support at 60,000, we could be dipping to 59,500. I think 62,000 is likely coming. We could go a little bit higher to 64,000. Might see a little bounce in Bitcoin tomorrow, and we'll see if you reject. As far as ES goes, we look more bullish. We're going to be looking at 5,650. If we break that, we could be pushing for this imbalance towards 5,700 on ES. If we reject here, look for support at 5610. If we lose that, we dip back down. This looks a little bit more bullish to me, even though we're forming a bearish divergence. We could push a little bit higher for now, but just be very, very careful because of the fact that we are once again in a very, very critical place, and we're going to be testing some tough resistance. For Tesla, we look more bullish. We have a nice kind of like accumulation right over here. We're actually holding support nicely. So going into tomorrow, I think we might attempt to get to 225. We may even try to break it, but don't turn overly bullish, guys, because like I said before, resistance is going to be tougher the closer we get to that 230 area. So I'm thinking we might actually push a little bit on Tesla. For tomorrow, we might be looking for 225, if not 228. But then we'll see if we get a rejection like we just did the last time we hit that resistance. And then if we break that 228 area, we're going to easily fill these imbalances, go up to about the 234 zone. So Tesla could see a little push, but that depends on a lot of different factors. Depends on the data coming out for tomorrow. The data is going to be very, very significant. But technically speaking, I do think 225 at least is coming. The QQQ, we might push a little bit higher. I think we could get very close to about 485, this high up here. If we break 485, we could be filling this imbalance towards 490. So we'll see if we end up rejecting or not. But I do see more upside potential for 485, if not higher levels. And we look more bullish in my personal opinion. So the QQQ is looking more bullish. We are forming a bearish divergence in the process. So we might go a little higher. 485 plus could be coming, but there is a risk of us rejecting near it. There may be a little bit above that. So be very, very careful with the QQQ. I think we might go a little higher for now, but be careful. Be careful, guys. The market is at risk of a potential rejection. For Aapl, we're looking decent right now. We are forming a bearish divergence, and we're not really moving much. So look at 226 as support and 227 as resistance. We're shuffling in between. We'll see which way we break just for confirmation. The IWM is looking more bullish. I'm going to be looking for 216 tomorrow, if not that gap fill. I think the 216s are coming, and we'll see what happens after we fill the gap. Excuse me. Will we get a big rejection off this previous support becoming resistance at this 216.5 area, or will we end up dipping back down towards 213? As of right now, we're in a very, very nice looking uptrend. We do favor upsides. So we'll just have to see how things go. I think we might push for 216, and we'll see what kind of reaction we get. Coinbase may be pushing for 208 to 210, so a little bit more upside is likely coming, but we'll see if that rejection I'm talking about ends up coming. Watch this imbalance for resistance. For Amazon, we're looking more bullish. I do want to call out that we're attempting to fill the gap now. Watch 180 as a key resistance. If we do hold above that, we could attempt to fill this gap or get very close to going all the way up to about 184. If we could hold above 180, it really depends. We're at resistance right now. If we reject here, we could be retracing back down to 176. If we break past 180, we could be pushing for the gap fill for 184. And then we'll see which way we end up rejecting. But I do believe that for now, Amazon's a bit more bullish. If we could try to break above 180 and hold it, we could push a little bit more, and we'll see what kind of reaction we get. Meta is trying to push higher. We could be looking for a test of this imbalance all the way into the low 540s. But when we watch to see if we form a divergence and if we end up slowing down, so look for a test of 537 to 540 tomorrow. And we'll see if we get a rejection or not. Might go a little bit higher, then we'll see what kind of reaction we get. For others out there, I just want to mention that Microsoft is kind of pushing right here. Look at the 50 EMA as our resistance at 425. If we end up dipping, we'll be looking for 419 as our support. We're at resistance. It's very tough, and that's why we're forming this kind of like doji-like structure. So be careful with Microsoft. We're still stuck in the middle. So we're stuck between 423, 420 and 425. Basically, if we lose 420, we start dipping lower. So give it some time. And then finally for Google, it's the same thing. We're kind of shuffling right now. As you guys can see, it tried to break it only to come back down. So it's still stuck in this very, very interesting trend on the daily. We're still range bound between 166 and 168. So give it some time. We'll see which way it breaks. With that being said, guys, the market's doing a decent job at holding up, and we look bullish for now. Okay, we could go higher. I do favor upside a little bit more, but just because we're going to go a little higher does not mean it's going to last forever. So be careful once we hit some critical resistance. There is going to be a risk of rejection as we hit the all-time high resistance. So I just want to say to be careful at the all-time high. I'm not promising it will reject or it will break. We just have to wait and see. But there is a risk that's somewhat significant, I would say, that the market could get a rejection at all-time highs. So with that being said, NIO could push a little bit more as long as we hold above 3.95. We'll be looking for basically 4.07. If we lose 3.95, we dip back down, but this does look like it wants to rebound because we got some bullish news from the Fed, which is helping the markets. So NIO might push a little bit more, and we'll see what kind of reaction we get off the imbalance. With that being said, I thank you all so much for listening. Have a great day, and peace out.